Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is your nosy neighbor here, and I'm going to bring you fragrance reviews like no other. I'm gonna try to give you a little background on these fragrances and stories that stick. If you're new here to our video, make sure you press that. That way you can get the latest videos every time. And just for my algorithm, make sure you press it. Hit that like button. Subscribe to get the latest in fragrance reviews. This is real simple. A lot of men, we definitely like looking good. We like smelling good. And I'm gonna try to bring you different fragrances from different houses that you might not be familiar with, or you may not know the storyline or the history of it. And I'm definitely a fragrance connoisseur and historian, and I love the stories behind the juice. I'm a firm believer that all fragrances have a soul, and you gotta use them, you gotta open them up, you gotta play with them. And that's what I'm gonna try to bring to you is the love that I have for fragrances, so that you can feel the way that feels when you start using them for different occasions. I live here in New York City, so we have 4 seasons. So it's perfect for the fragrance lover when you have 4 seasons where for the summer you're wearing something fresh, refreshing, light, airy. For the spring or fall, something a little warmer. For the winter, something a little harder, that lasts longer, that's even thicker, that you won't choke anyone out because of the freezing cold temperature. Today we're going to be talking about 2 of Tom Ford's masterpieces. If you know anything about clothing design and his private blend collection, you know Tom Ford is a pioneer and a master at work. We're going to be reviewing today Gucci Envy, which is one of his masterpieces, and YSL's M7. And M7 is one of those fragrances where if you haven't smelled it, both of these, you're in for a ride. Okay, well, I think we should start off with a little background. We're talking about Tom Ford. Tom Ford, raised in Texas for a little bit, moved to Arizona. He moved around a lot to New York. He studied art history here in New York City. And I think that alone, think about the base that this guy's working with. He understands Greek, Italian, Roman history of art and the way it works in a room, on clothing, and the way it also works on timelines when you're working with ads, ad agencies, marketing. When you understand art, it opens up a lot of doors, and he has that. Eventually, he did go to Parsons here in New York for architecture, and he was a person that he was so anal about what the people inside of his architectural designs were wearing, that he realized that it's not architecture he's in love with, it's the people that are in his architecture that's more important to him. So I think eventually he realized that his calling is not drawing up buildings, although he does appreciate the architecture of Milan and United States, all around the United States. Man's very well traveled. I'm sure he appreciates the architecture, but you also appreciate the way people look, and he's a person that he's very much into his looks. You see he has a classic black and white dress attire. He likes having his top buttons open, and that's where he feels comfortable. That's where he looks his best. He likes wearing his beard, and the guy's aged well, and I think he's gotten better at his craft. But we're talking about the beginning building blocks of Tom Ford. So we're talking about him graduating from Parsons and walking up and down 7th Avenue looking for work. I heard he called one designer company every day for almost 30 days till they finally, the owner called them back and gave him a job just to get rid of this guy from calling. So he was a picture of persistence, and I liked that. And I remember he graduated with an architecture degree, and he never told anybody that he's not a designer, but they assumed if you're saying you graduated from Parsons, that's what you do. So that was great. I think that's amazing that based on not giving all the information, not lying, just, giving the basic information, he got a couple of jobs working for different companies on 7th Avenue. If you're here in New York City, the garment district, the fashion district, that's where it's at, 7th Ave. I remember in 1990, he finally joined Gucci. And at that time, I think he was almost 30 years old, not quite. He was a little younger. And Gucci was in shambles between 1990, 1993. I remember I was going away to college already. And I remember listening to the Beastie Boys line that said, "Looking at my Gucci, it's about that time." It stayed in your head. And as a kid, I always said, man, as an adult, one day I'm going to own a Gucci watch. And I'm going to rock it. And it stayed with me. And of course, since then, I've bought Gucci watches, and my wallet is Gucci. I'm a big fan of the company. And I think his sons were really driving it to the ground. And they were at a point where they were going to sell Gucci because they knew it was just done. And they almost went bankrupt. Like, you could say they were that close to bankruptcy. And Tom Ford was brought in, and I guess at that point they're like, "Kid, you have at it, at our collection." And they didn't think anything of it, like anything would come of it. And it ended up that one of the stipulations in the contract was that he couldn't come out onto the runway or anything, no, but like not be the face of Gucci, just go work and design. And at one of the shows, he ended up just popping his head out and taking a bow, and the media wanted to know who he was. And he brought that sexy back to Gucci, and instantly, in stores, these collections were sold out. Europe, New York, sold out. France, New York, Milan, everywhere. So I said to myself, man, this guy may have something. And I think the brothers kind of agree. This kid, he has that appeal that people were looking for. And although he defied them, I think when they saw the stock go up by so much, and by 1994, a couple years later, he was made the creative director. And that's when the magic really happened. They were making so much money. They were, I think, up to $3 billion. That's a lot of money. And they acquired YSL. And they also sent them over there to Milan, and they said, start working on the YSL line and see what you can do with it. Now, at around the time of 1998, this little puppy was created. People didn't think much of it at first. 2 pieces of foam inside a sliding case. This is the 1.7 ounce. Big cap. Looks like this. You can see it's been used. And it is just gorgeous. Now remember, this is the original stuff. Not reformulated, not a fake. And it's funny because this is, and always has been since then, this was my brother's signature scent. And so I know this very well. So whenever I'm purchasing one and it smells funky or funny, I know it. Because, every day of my brother's life, he wore this for years. His only scent, by the way. So you're not going to sell me a fake. I know it, just batch number and all that good stuff. But I put it under my nose. I know if it's the real McCoy or not. So this was one of my favorites to smell in the air in the wintertime. It's just gorgeous. And we're talking about woodsy notes, lots of them. At the top you have mandarin on the opening, spices. It's just a journey. It's like a warm, cozy sweater, this thing. Coriander, peppers, rosewood, ginger, lavender. Then in the heart it has all this big floral bouquet of jasmine, of rose, of carnation. And then down in the bottom, at the end. You won't be disappointed. It has all these beautiful wood, sandalwood, cedar wood, just kind of to balance things out. It's such a masculine scent. You won't confuse this with a woman, and I think that's what I liked about a lot of the colognes from the 70s and 80s and even early 90s. They still had the male punch, and I love that. And now it's really sought after. It's Gucci Envy, and when you smell it, you know it. I know people in the fragrance community and in the fragrance world that still haven't put their nose on this thing, and I know it so well, which is hilarious to me, that some people have never smelled it. And that's Gucci Envy. And I remember when he took over YSL, YSL was also in the dumps, and the creative director was Tom Ford, and under his direction, he put this bad boy together. This is M7. A lot of people say, oh, why is it called M7? M7 is the 7th fragrance from YSL for men. M for men and 7. That's what that kind of. He created this in 2002. So a little later than Gucci Envy, as you can see. With time, he put the sexy back. He got one soccer player to do the ads for it, and the ads weren't shown really here in the United States for obvious reasons. I mean, the guy was kind of basically nude, and you can kind of see his private parts, and you can look that up if you'd like. You can Google it, and you'll see that it was a very provocative ad campaign for this. I'm trying to think. I remember when I first got my hands on this. This is like my 3rd bottle, but I remember first getting a whiff of this thing. I mean, the cap is weird. Everything's off to the side. See-through bottle with this brown juice in there, and Tom Ford was a pioneer. He was one of the first to use argar wood, or what we call now oud, and I happen to have actually some oud here, so you can see what it looks like, and purchased this myself. And they're getting pretty expensive for a piece of oud. Looks like a mustache, right? It smells amazing, sweet, almost like ambery. I got another piece here. Looks like this. This will probably give you a little bit more detail. Looks like a tree branch, but it's like petrified wood. It smells sweet after a couple of years of putting it away. I keep it in its original case, and that's what it looks like. And Tom Ford was using this from Saudi Arabia before anybody was using it. He was the first, for sure. And this thing is perfect for fall, winter, if you can get your hands on it. We're talking about the top note has Italian bergamot, so it's a classic clean opening with Sicilian mandarin, which gives it another fresh masculine smell. Then you got the rosemary from southern France to kind of balance it out, and then the heart, you got the argar wood, which is the wood you just saw. Vetiver, which is very masculine, clean, usually from Haiti. And then you got ambergris. If you don't know ambergris, it's an expensive note, and it comes from, unfortunately, whale vomit. And usually they regurgitate what they cannot digest, like a beak of a pelican floating into their stomach. That rocks, things of that nature, they'll regurgitate and they'll have it. And it's worth a whole lot more than gold and oil, I think, for a small amount. So if you find it and you smell it, you may know it. I know this thing has the 2 very expensive notes, ambergris and argar wood or oud, and it just smells like a warm. A lot of people compare this to Dr. Pepper. I drink Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper, and I could tell you it does. It has a Dr. Pepper vibe. I hear cherry cough medicine, sure. It reminds me of the cherry triangular Vicks cough drops you have in the winter, but it also has a nice mandarin glow around it. So it kind of, but it's the woods in here. The oud was first being used here before any other cologne. This is why you buy this, because it's a beautifully blended oud. It's not nasty, it's not overbearing, it's not too medicinal and how people say it is. It's not. It's gorgeous if you wear it well. You leave this on a scarf, you leave that scarf behind in a woman's home, she's gonna remember you. You're walking by people in a setting, they're gonna want to know what you're about. It's that kind of fragrance because it's so unique to your catalog of fragrances. If you've never smelled this, you're gonna want to smell this again for the first time. And when you do smell it and someone's walking by, I love questions, and I love the history of fragrances, and I hope that you guys subscribe to The Nosy Neighbor and get to know me and get to know what I do. Remember 2004, 2005, my man Tom Ford is already burnt out. He was flying from Japan to London to Milan to New York. He was exhausted, and this is a guy, who takes 3, 4, sometimes 5 showers a day. So I could imagine, he hates wearing ties for too long. And he was already coming up with the concept of Tom Ford, the brand, around 2004. 2005, he retired from both Gucci and YSL at the top of his game. And the rest is history. He started Tom Ford. He's done movies since then. And I've seen all his movies. I've definitely have tried or owned all of his private blend collections, which are my favorite. My girlfriend's favorite fragrance is Tobacco Vanille from that house, from his private blend collection. And as far as myself, I still like those 2 classics. I think Gucci Envy and M7 are his masterpieces. This is a master's class in fragrance for men. And last but not least, eventually I'm gonna make a fragrance video. And I just want to give a shout out to Carlos over at Brooklyn Fragrance Lover. Everybody knows him. He's so funny. And Steve over at Red Adolescence. Those guys really gave me the push and got me started into fragrance community. And doing this now, full time. So I have I've quit my job, and I've never been happier that I'm finally doing what I love, and that's bringing the amount of years I've been into fragrance to your home. So I look forward to hearing from you guys in the fragrance community and getting feedback on what you guys want to talk about also. I know as far as myself, I'm going to keep bringing very unique fragrances and giving you the history of the houses or the creative directors, the designers, whoever was involved in these things, and try to give you a good story. I have a large catalog of colognes. I've been around for a while. I'm a little older than most, and although I might not look it, I would sneak into my great uncle's room while he went running and jogging, and I would sniff his colognes, the original Polo, Aramis, all those original colognes, and I'd spray it and smell horrible for it, so I always got caught. But now I see that it was worth it. It was my calling, and so I want to make sure that when people are or thinking about purchasing something, because these will cost you between $300, $400, $500, $600 to get your hands on them. Remember, some of these are almost 20 years old, and the juice is difficult to come by. It's like the last of the last drops on the planet. So I totally want to make sure that at least we preserve it by talking about them and remembering them.